So good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is the third in our series. Is it the third? February, March, April? No, it's the fourth. The fourth in our series, Building a Great Life. And tonight we're focusing on finances, financial responsibility, myth busting around benefits, the ABLE Act, and kind of perspectives on money and benefits. So my name is Molly Cole. I am the Associate Director at the University of Connecticut Center of Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. And this webinar series is brought to you
without my camera on.
Please turn off your microphones. Please mute. Thank you. This webinar series is brought to you through funding from the Connecticut Council on Developmental Disabilities. So many thanks to the Council for funding these efforts. Just a reminder for all of you that we count on our data and our perspectives and our feedback from you to keep these going. So at the end, you're going to get a link to an evaluation. You'll also get one in an email right after this webinar. Please take a few minutes to go in and fill that out for us. We really appreciate it. Couple of other reminders, please put your questions in the chat. We will have time for questions. We may try and answer some of them as we go along. It depends on how our time goes, but we will have time for questions at the end. So please leave your questions in the chat. Next up, June 3rd and July 1st, we're doing 2 sessions back-to-back on employment. So June will be kind of the big picture national view on employment and people with disabilities. And then in July, we're going to look at employment in Connecticut and what that looks like for people with disabilities. So please be sure to join us. We'll be sending those links out in the next couple of weeks. And with that, I'm going to introduce our panel who have much to share with you tonight. So Win Evarts is the Executive Director of the ARC of Connecticut. He has a background in finance. He's also, I'm proud to say, a Partners in Policymaking grad. So I'm just putting in my plugs tonight. So we like to claim whoever we can. We're claiming Win. So, and Win is going to talk to you about financial responsibility. Following Win, we will have Lisa O'Connor. Lisa is a Certified Community Partner Work Incentive Coordinator. Lisa is going to talk to you about myth busting, sort of work, disability, and benefits, things you thought you knew that aren't necessarily true. And then last on this, but certainly not least, is Chris Blake, also a Partners grad. We'll put another plug in. And Chris is an advocate in Connecticut and most recently just finished a fellowship with SARTAC, the Self-Advocacy Resource Technical Assistance Center, doing a project on making the ABLE Act accessible in plain language for people with disabilities. And Chris is going to talk to you about ABLE accounts, but also his perspectives on money, benefits, and some of the things that he's learned along the way as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Win.
Thank you, Molly. I'm just going to bring up my screen sharing here.
Great.
Okay, we're going to talk about building a great life with financial responsibility. I'm going to explain what financial responsibility is, why it's important, and a 3-part method for you to become a financially responsible person. So what's financial responsibility? It's generally defined as the process of using money and other things that can be turned into money in a way that's considered productive and also in the best interests of the person, family, or organization that has the money. Being financially responsible means making choices that balance the amount of money that you have now and are certain to have in the near future, and your current and future needs and goals. Financial responsibility is how families, individuals, companies, and governments keep themselves moving towards their goals. Financial responsibility helps us make good choices, especially in the situations where we need or want to make a major change in a part of our life. And a major change could be something like changing where we live, who we live with, or what we might do for work. Why is financial responsibility important? Is because it can have a direct impact on our quality of life. It helps us achieve our goals, and it helps us gain our independence. We spend a lot of time thinking about decisions and weighing different alternatives because they're important decisions to us. And in a lot of ways, they're impacted by money. So if we learn more about our dreams, our goals, our skills, abilities, and relationships, it's also important to learn how our lives are put together in a financial sense. And this is true for everyone. So how do I become a financially responsible person? You start by asking questions. That's the first step in this 3-step methodology. We need to accept that there are some times when we need to talk through some of these decisions with someone that we trust and who we can ask help from. So it starts with the questions. Here are some of the questions that you might start with. How are my benefits spent now? How is my support budget spent now? Do other things that I regularly do cost money? And if the answer is yes, how are they paid for? How much money can I have in my bank account without affecting my benefits? Knowing the limitations of what you can and cannot do with money is an important part of becoming financially responsible. And then finally, the question that probably has the most amount of scope and to it is, are there other ways to reach my goals than what I'm doing now? And how much do those cost? All those questions should be asked to somebody that you trust, and you should not be afraid to keep asking questions until you get the information that makes you feel comfortable with what your decision is. The second step is to build a budget. Budgets are used to make decisions that involve money. They measure the amount of money earned, spent, and invested in an activity. And a budget has 2 main parts. And they're lists, basically. They're the lists of the money that you receive over a chosen period of time, and the list of the money that you spend over the same chosen period of time. Budgets are made using different periods of time. Sometimes they're daily, weekly, they could be monthly, or they could be yearly. You choose the period of time that works for you. I think many people budget on a monthly basis, probably based on how they receive their benefits. It's really important when you budget to note where the money received or your income comes from. And it may come from multiple sources. And do the same thing with the money that you spend or your expenses. Here's an example of some of the entries that you might make in a simple monthly budget. On the left side is the money received, and it's listed, and then the column that's from is where it might be received from your benefits, from if you receive services from DDS. It's your DDS monthly budget in the next line. If you also receive money, for example, from Community First Choice, that may be on the third line. If you work, the amount of money you earn during the month is on the fourth line. And then there's an other money line, and I'll get to that in a bit, but that would be if you're doing things regularly that somebody else is subsidizing, somebody else is paying for, then you could put that there. On the right side, your monthly money spent would be for things like food and rent and utilities and any transportation costs and clothing and social. For some people in doing budgeting, it's easier to start with the money received. And that could be because of the regularity with which it's received. And for others, it's easier to start with your expenditures. But for either way, whether you have an expenditure, you need to figure out where the money came from to pay for it. And if you have income, from the left side, you need to figure out at the end of the month where that income went in terms of your expenditures. Some of the items that are listed in this example might not have relevance to you, and you can fill them in with what does. But the idea is to develop a list of the money that comes in and a list of the money that goes out. The third part of this I refer to as keeping score. The way to become financially responsible is to keep score. And you can use the sheet that was on the previous slide to do that. And the sheet that's on this slide is filled in with actual money amounts to illustrate my points. So, I apologize. The way to keep score is to take these actual money amounts and with the help of somebody else or the help of the calculator, add them up at the bottom and compare what the two columns add up to. So if your total money spent is greater than your total money received, you may want to think about what you can cut out of your budget or where you can find some more hours of work, because that is leading to you running out of money faster than you should be. If the two amounts are equal, hooray, you're doing a very efficient job of spending the money that you have because you're meeting the needs that you've identified with the money that's coming in. And then finally, if it looks like the example in front of you and the total money received is greater than the total money spent, your next reflex action should be to think about what your long-term goals are. And your action tonight should be to listen to what Chris Blake has to say. And with that, I'm finished. And thank you very much. And I'm going to now give the floor to Lisa.
Thanks so much, Wynn. Lisa, did we decide you're sharing or I'm sharing?
You're sharing, please.
I'm going to do that right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, super. So again, good evening and thank you for joining us. My name is Lisa O'Connor, and as Molly said, I'm a certified, and this is a mouthful, I'm a certified community partner work incentive coordinator, which only means that I have training in the Social Security disability rules about working. I also worked 20 years at the Department of Social Services, so don't hate me, but it gives me a lot of background and information about DSS. So even though I'm retired, I still enjoy consulting on these programs that we're going to discuss. Having given that brief introduction, let me get started with this part of the presentation. My goal is to help you become aware of the incentives available to you that can hopefully support you in achieving greater success in the future. Next. So throughout the presentation, we're going to point out several false ideas, even ones you may have heard, about having a disability and working. Then we'll take a brief look at a few of the work incentives that are a part of the Social Security benefits programs, including medical coverage, and talk about some asset building strategies as a result of work. We'll also discuss the ticket to work and benefits counseling, and we'll wrap up with other programs that can help you. Next. Next. Oh, sorry. Previous. Thank you. So you may have heard for various reasons that people with disabilities should not work. But research has shown that there are many benefits from working, such as improved self-esteem, better control of disabling symptoms, reduced medication use. I will have to choose whether I'm...
Just keep talking.
Reduced substance abuse, greater life satisfaction, and of course, improved finances. Many of us have experienced waking up one morning not feeling well at all, but there was something important that we needed to get done at work, so we pushed ourselves to get there, even saying, I'm going to leave after lunch, and before we know it, the day is over. And in my case, with severe asthma, I may not have even had to use my nebulizer once, even though I had it with me. Whereas if I had stayed home, I would have had to use it a couple of times. Next. Have you ever looked in your wallet or pocketbook and asked yourself if there's enough money for extras like a movie or meals at a restaurant? Do you have problems gathering enough money to pay for your monthly phone bill or buying textbooks if you're a student? Does buying a house or a new car seem like a far-off dream? Next. While receiving cash benefits certainly is helpful, it's usually not enough to provide for all our needs. So how can we increase our income? Many people choose work. Most people who work have more income available to them, whether they have a combination of earnings and benefits or earnings alone. Next. Work can certainly help you increase your income, as well as helping you improve many parts of your life, such as affording better housing and transportation. Many support services continue when you work, and most everyone can continue on their health benefits as well. Molly, I think if you press it, another subtitle is going to come up. There we go. Press again. Great. And next. So aside from monetary reasons and the physical and mental health benefits, which are some of the other reasons, what are some of the other reasons? Wait a second. Can we go to the previous slide, Molly? Thank you. What are some of the other reasons that you might want to work? There are intrinsic reasons as well. We gain independence from getting out into a new environment where we meet new people and learn new skills. And it's great when you have structure to your day and more purpose in your life. Next. So you may have heard advice telling you not to work because Social Security is going to stop your benefits, or they're going to cut you off everything, and the state is too. This is a total myth. The facts are there are several Social Security work incentives that can help you. Many people go to work and still receive their Social Security. Some people do better going off their benefits and just having their earnings. And the Social Security work incentives make it fairly easy to go back on your benefits if needed. Next. Let's talk about two Social Security cash benefits that can often help people as they prepare for the world of work. They are SSI and SSDI. By the way, it's important that you know the next slides only show figures that pertain to 2021. Next. For example, the maximum SSI of $794 is for this year. Last year it was $783, okay? So we'll look at SSI first. SSI is Supplementary Security Income. It's a needs program that has a maximum monthly benefit. This is for someone with a disability who has very few resources, or assets as they're also called, and with little or no work history. Cash benefits may continue while you're working until you earn enough to support yourself. SSI comes with Medicaid, also called Husky or Husky Medicaid in Connecticut. Next. So let's look at SSI and work example. If you're receiving the full amount of $794 SSI and start working at Dunkin' Donuts 25 hours a week, earning $12 an hour, yes, your SSI is going to be lower, but your combined SSI plus earnings will be much higher than just the $794 in SSI. And if your earnings go too high, that you go off your SSI, but then your hours get lowered and therefore your wages go down, you just need to provide proof to Social Security to start your SSI again. And your Medicaid continues throughout these changes in your income. Next. I sometimes met with families who are hesitant to allow their teenagers or young adults to work for fear that their SSI cash would be lowered or stopped. These folks were always happy to learn about the student earned income exclusion, which allows people under the age of 22 who are regularly attending school to earn as much as $1,930 a month or $7,770 a year without changing the amount of their SSI check at all. This allows most students who work primarily in part-time jobs during the school year or in summer jobs to keep their whole SSI benefit along with their earnings. So be sure to let Social Security know if you are a student so you can take advantage of this powerful work incentive. Next. Now let's look at the other disability benefit, Social Security Disability Insurance. SSDI is based on what a person paid into the Social Security system, so the benefit amount is different for each beneficiary. SSDI also has work incentives that allow you to try working and earning money without losing any of your SSDI at all. SSDI recipients are generally awarded Medicare benefits after 24 months of eligibility. And Medicare usually continues for many years, even if the SSDI benefit has stopped. Next. So let's say you receive $1,000 in SSDI and your first job is working full-time at Walmart. Is your SSDI going to stop or go down? No. You're going to have time to try working this job while continuing to receive your full SSDI. Then if you're able to continue working full-time, you can sit down with a benefits counselor and see if you're going to have more income and keep the services you need and give up your SSDI. Either way, you're going to continue to have Medicare and may become eligible for Medicaid. So let's look at some myths and facts on the next slide about medical coverage. One of the reasons most people did not want to go to work was fear of losing their medical coverage, whether it was Medicare or Medicaid or both. The facts are, if you were on Medicaid when your SSI stopped due to earnings, you can keep both Medicaid and your eligibility for SSI until you earn more than $53,000 gross in 2021. If you're receiving SSDI, you'll continue to have your Medicare coverage for any months that you receive the SSDI benefit, and for at least 78 months after your SSDI cash benefit stops due to earnings. So how does working make you eligible for Medicaid? Next. On the MedConnect program. In the example we just did, if you're receiving $1,000 in SSDI and on Medicare, you're not eligible for Medicaid. You'll be in that dreaded spend down where you have to spend X number of dollars each month, every 6 months, before you can get on Medicaid, submit all the receipts to DSS, and by the time you're active Medicaid, you're getting your next redetermination form. But if you're working and have less than $10,000 in assets, you'll be eligible for this Medicaid program, which allows you to have income up to $75,000 a year. In fact, it's possible to become eligible for the MedConnect program, even if you've never received SSDI or SSI. The Department of Social Services will do a disability review to see if your disability meets the Social Security definition. And if you're working, you'd be eligible for this program if you meet the asset and income limits, which are relatively high.
Has not been paid for legal services he provided to the president.
Could somebody mute, please? Thank you. Next. We talked about the Social Security and Medicare medical work incentives, so let's see what else there is to help you make a decision whether or not to work. We'll talk about these briefly one by one. Next. Next. So the Earned Income Tax Credit, as you can read, is a tax refund for low to moderate income workers, even those who don't earn enough to requiring them to file taxes. A single individual with this year's tax return can be eligible for up to $538 in just the Earned Income Tax Credit. And there are volunteer income tax assistance sites to do your taxes for free. Some even offer e-filing. These VITA people are trained by the IRS to offer this service. Next. Next. The PASS, Plan to Achieve Self-Support Program. The money placed in a PASS account can be used to purchase a car for getting to work, paying for textbooks, starting up funds for a small business, or even for job training costs. Social Security doesn't count the money in your PASS account when figuring your SSI amount, and the PASS account is not counted as part of your assets. Next. You may also want to be aware of individual development accounts, which are match savings accounts, generally $2 for every dollar that you save, to a maximum of $3,000 towards the savings goal. And they're generally offered for buying a home or condo, higher education, or starting your own business. Next. There are some places where you can put extra money and still be eligible for Medicaid and SSI. One that's not covered here is irrevocable burial accounts, but you can't use them here and now. Another one is special needs trusts, which has pluses and minuses. It can be used for a variety of things, but can't be used for room and board. Listed here are a few pluses and minuses of special needs trusts. Fortunately, now there are ABLE accounts, which Chris, our next speaker, is the expert on. Next. Ticket to work. Anyone who receives a Social Security disability benefit has access to the Ticket to Work program. It's free and voluntary and set up to help people toward their job goals. Some of the services that ticket takers provide are listed here. Next. Could you please mute? Thank you. Who will take your ticket? The answer is employment networks under contract with Social Security. They can take your ticket, and these networks can be private companies, public organizations, or state rehabilitation agencies. When using your ticket successfully, Social Security will not conduct a medical review. Next. When you decide to use an employment network, you want to ask questions so that you'll have the supports you need to be successful. For example, if transportation is a problem, you'll want to use an EN who provides transportation. Or if you need a sign language interpreter or think you may need on-the-job supports while working, you'll want to choose an employment network who offers those assists. Another question you want to address is if your employment plan is developed together. For example, if you have a developmental disability and want to work in an office, you don't want to be pigeonholed into a supermarket job. Don't be discouraged if an employment network doesn't accept your ticket. There could be a lot of reasons and have nothing to do with your ability to work, such as they don't have enough counselors to give you the attention you deserve at this time.
Join the meeting.
This is why it's important for you to contact all the employment networks serving your area. Next, please. The Connect to Work project has several benefit specialists who have been certified through Social Security to provide you accurate information about how employment affects your specific individual federal and state benefits. These benefit specialists are the same as the WIPA people that are on the Social Security work site. Next. Listed here are agencies that have been established specifically to address disabilities and employment. BESB, the second one down, also has many other services for visually impaired persons. Next. American Job Centers, the one-stop centers at Connecticut Works, are a great resource. You may speak to their staff for employment information. Next. And there are other state and federal agencies able to help you. So as you can see, there is no single entry point to find the assistance you may need. For persons with developmental disabilities who are considering employment, DDS, the third one listed on this slide, has a wonderful, brilliant PowerPoint about work that I'd encourage you to take a look at, called What's So Important About Having a Job. Next. If there is a type of assistive technology that would help you move toward employment, you may be able to get help from the Connecticut Tech Act project. The project members can talk to you about assistive technology, such as hearing aids, wheelchairs, hands-free access to a computer, and other equipment that may improve your functional disabilities. Next. The Social Security Red Book covers SSI, SSDI work incentives, as well as the PASS program, vocational rehabilitation, IDAs, ABLE accounts, Ticket to Work, American Job Center, WIPA projects, which is the Benefits Counseling Connect to Work project that we reviewed on slide 25. So mostly all the programs that we mentioned in these slides are covered in the Social Security Red Book. Next. So in review, we talked about the SSI, SSDI, Medicare and Medicaid work incentives, what to do with all the money you've earned, Ticket to Work to help you get that job, benefits counseling to understand what will or will not happen to your benefits when you work, and finally, other programs to help you understand that there are many avenues available to offer the help that you may need. Next. So thank you for watching. And if there's time at the end of Chris's presentation, we can take questions.
So thank you so much. That was, you covered a lot of information there. A few people have asked questions in the chat about whether the PowerPoints will be made available. And yes, they will. I'm not going to promise that we will turn them around tomorrow, but we will get them out to anyone who registered will get a copy of the PowerPoint. The recording will also be made available. That takes a little bit longer, but you will get a link to the recording. Next, I want to introduce our friend and advocate in Connecticut, Chris Blake. Chris, do you want me to put anything up on the screen right now, or do you want to just talk it through?
Talk it through right now.
Okay, let me know when you want something up.
I'm talking about the basics of the able account because it gets pretty involved and complicated because every state have a different version of it. So I'm just talking about the basic rules of it. Is 15,000 you could put in a year if you got like money from a relative, inherited money, or like a gift or something. And then you could add another $12,240 if you're working. So in total, that's 27,240. And the maximum is you could put in after like about between 7 or 8 years, depends on how much you save, is 100,000. That's where it starts affecting your benefits. And then you could spend on practically everything. And Molly, you can show some of the slides.
Sure. Oops, wait a minute. That's this one. Okay. So Chris, do you want to just talk through what's on the screen?
Yeah, this is the workbook I traded. It shows you how to pick one.
Do you want to go to the tables or?
Yeah, I want to go to like the different things you could spend on.
Oh, okay. Let's see, using your account. Okay.
And after that, go to like the age limit.
Yeah, I think it's on the same page.
Sure.
All right. So here's some examples of expenses. Here you go. Okay. Do you want me to read through these?
Yep.
Okay. So you can spend it on basic living expenses like food, clothing, or personal care. You can spend, these are all qualified. So this is all allowable under ABLE. Housing, primary residence, expenses for your house or your apartment, home improvement, modifications, repairs, mortgage payment, property tax, utilities, transportation, things like moving expenses, mass transit, purchase of or modification of vehicles, or just expenses for using transportation like Uber. Education, you can spend it on things like tuition, all the way from preschool through post-secondary. You can spend it on books, supplies, educational materials, assistive tech and personal support, things like screen readers or monitoring equipment.
Everything is not just medical stuff.
Anything. Employment training.
Stuff in education, like some people think so.
Right. It's really broad, really broad. Employment training and support, health and prevention and wellness. So all of the things that are related to health, including respite therapy, DME, durable medical equipment, personal assistance, and then miscellaneous things like financial management, legal fees, expenses to have someone provide some oversight for you, monitoring, and funeral and burial expenses.
And you to use the ABLE account more like if you inherited money or won a lawsuit and you had a bunch of money, you had to figure out what to deal with, how to deal with it, and set up an ABLE account, and it won't affect your benefits.
So, all right, Chris, on the screen now is the age limits, the limits on an ABLE account. So the age limit, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, you have to have permanent disability before you turn 26. And it's not like Social Security or Medicaid where you have to go through like tons of medical records of paperwork and prove you have a disability. It's pretty like garden variety generic questionnaire of how to describe, because they do a background check on their end. So you need to go through all this like months and months of trying to prove something.
Right. There actually was a bill to expand that somewhere around the age of 46. That I don't know that it's gone anywhere, but it was to give you eligibility for an ABLE account if your disability occurred before the age of 46, which would allow for a number of veterans actually to come on to coverage. Go ahead.
Yeah, they a couple years ago before that they wanted like 64.
Right. Yeah. The rest of this page, Chris talks about limits on deposits, limits so you can keep your Social Security.
Those are like the basic rules of the federal government made. It gets more complicated by looking at different states because they're all different and positives and negatives.
Do you want to look at a couple?
Yeah, there maybe show 3 of them, or at least give it
All right.
like a snapshot.
So what Chris did was he identified the things in the state eligibility that would be most important to people. And he put those in a table, but then under each state, you can click on it and actually go to the state website and it'll tell you more about that state. So let's look at Georgia, Illinois, and Indiana. There we go. All right, so Georgia, you can have up to $482,000 in your account. Chris, do you want to talk about that?
Well, that's how much you could have in your lifetime. Really, that doesn't matter because 100,000 is your limit.
If you got
care about benefits. So if you don't care about benefits, I guess that number is for you.
Right, there you go. Fees. States charge a different amount to open and keep open your account. So in Georgia, they charge $42 a year and $3.50 a month for a checking account. And you have to have $50 to open the account unless you open it electronically.
And some of them only cost like $1 to open.
Yep. So if you look below it, Illinois doesn't have any fee to open their account. And they have a monthly service fee, but it's waived if you take electronic statements over paper. So they're all different in terms of what they offer.
Usually the standard is like, or you want to pay more paper trail, it's going to cost more. If you want no paper trail, it's going to cost you a lot less.
Most of the states offer some kind of prepaid card, but not all of them, like Illinois does not. But Indiana and Georgia do on this page. So, you want to go through and pick the state to open your account. Chris, you picked Massachusetts. Yeah. And that's this one. It doesn't have any fees, and it doesn't have any first deposit minimum, and it offers a prepaid card. So that was a good choice for you. And it had a lot of investment options. Do you want to talk about the investments?
Not really. I can mention it taking me 3 months choosing one because I didn't have a tool like this.
Indeed. Yeah, that was Chris's aha. So Chris spent many months trying to decide what to open, and then decided that he'd picked out his StarTech project, and it was to do something about ABLE accounts.
So I bet you wondered why it takes so long.
Do you want to talk about what the investment stuff is in ABLE, Chris?
It's like the stock market, only they make the choices for you. So it's like high risk, medium risk, some risk, no risk. They have different varieties in every state. Of some have many options. Some of them only give you free options. Some of them don't. Some of them don't have any risk. Like, oh, it's you gamble with your money, like the stock market, and if the stock market's good, you gain interest and you gain more money. And if the stock market doesn't go well, they take your money away and you take a loss.
Right. It's risk. And so Chris has a nice explanation in the workbook about what an investment is and what it means. I think it makes it pretty clear. Anything else you want to cover in the booklet, or anything you want to show off the PowerPoints? So in addition to the booklet, he did 2 PowerPoint presentations on this.
You could use it as for children too. You could kind of like say they could probably set up one for your child with disability in their name and start saving as like a savings account in the future, like a trust or something like that. And then like when they turn 20, they can have some money saved for when they start getting into their first apartment. Like you could use it in a couple different ways. It's not this is do it just because of you have a job and you make some extra money, or you inherited some money or made some extra money somehow and you need to do arrangements. It's better to set up one before you need to have that problem is not set up one when you have that problem.
I'm looking at some of the questions that are in here. So somebody has asked, has Connecticut created an ABLE account? Chris, you want to talk about that?
They set up one. I still don't have a website yet for it. I still don't have an active website to window shop and see what the differences are. I still have one. You need to call up the state treasury if you want to sign up for one. It's very analog right now.
Yeah. I mean, in general, Chris, I think your experience in going in and looking at the state websites was that they were written for bankers or people who really understood investments.
Bankers, legislators, and attorneys.
Yeah, so it was pretty complicated stuff. And there was no rhyme or reason to the way it was put on the website. So it wasn't the same from state to state. So I think,
because like the federal government want states to adopt it the most easiest way, the quickest way. So they just kind of really had a very open thing. They didn't have any really standard, or they really have much of a standard or like a force. You have to do it this way. As long as you adopt this, they're happy.
great, right. Okay.
So it's like what train of thought. So it's much easier with how I traded it. Only it's very confusing when you start looking up state by state.
It is confusing because they're all different.
Yeah, and at least the ABLE account at least solved some of the gaps through Social Security and Medicaid. Some of it.
Right.
At
Right.
least give you some wiggle room to save.
Right. So a couple of folks have asked if this impacts other eligibility. And so what Chris has here is, I'm just going to read this, Chris, because I think it's a way to keep your benefits and save money for the things you need. ABLE accounts give people with disabilities and their families the ability to have tax-free savings accounts that will not affect their eligibility to get or stay on government assistance like Medicaid, Social Security, and other benefits. Anything you want to add to that about other benefits, housing or DDS or anything else?
this is a stopgap. This is not a full solution of the problems. Like, it, like they made up this number of $12,240 countrywide. It's not based on economy in your state, so it still doesn't make it. They still don't have like a way to do COSIN or have a buffer to get op benefits easily. So going to my other conversation I wanna.
Right. Just couple more things on this. Do you want to talk about independence to make decisions on how you spend your money from an ABLE account?
I'd use it like more for emergency use, like if you need new furniture, new TVs or something like that, or you want something, a big purchase, and then you could have it sit there for a while and decide what you want to spend on.
But it's your decision.
It's your decision.
It's not a joint account. It's not an account that's opened with anybody else. It's your account.
Directly your account, and you could manage it yourself or someone can help you. As I'd use it more as a emergency thing, because if you use it like on groceries or something like that, constantly for like little things add up very quickly, like Wynn tried to say.
Hey, Chris, could you speak to the withdrawal process? Because I heard there was like a waiting period, that it's not something that you want to dump your whole check into because it might take a while to access your money. It's not like going to like the ATM and having it spew out.
It sometimes takes 2 or 3 days to pull it
Yeah.
out of your ABLE account and put it into a checking account as attached to your ABLE account. It's
Okay,
not a checking account like a bank.
right.
When you put it in your checking account, it's attached to your ABLE account. That's counts as income.
Right.
And it sometimes takes
Right.
2 or 3 days. Or
And
longer.
that whole issue of having it count as an asset. So that's where it gets tricky in terms
Where
of
it's
moving that
asset.
money into your account. Do you want to talk about that, Chris? Because that was a big aha that I think you put in. That people
Yeah,
hadn't thought about.
that counts as assets as money is, and if you are reapplying for retermination or near the end of the month where Social Security start looking at in your accounts, it could affect your benefits.
Right. So if you took, let's say you took, I don't know, $4,000 out of an ABLE account, but you didn't spend it as fast as you thought you were going to spend it, and it's sitting in your personal checking account. That's where you get into trouble, right?
Because like you don't want it sit there for like a month and then
Right.
forget about it. And then next you know, something happens and you wonder why
Right.
you got off the waiver.
Yeah. And that's a piece of advice that's not in most of the guidance, but I thought it was really a critical thing that Chris identified, not to move that money until you're absolutely ready to spend it, and then spend it as fast as you can. Because if you leave it there, you're going to affect eligibility.
And also the possibility could get audited, so it's good to keep receipts or at least a digital record of what you spend it on. I doubt they would, only it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, there is a little thing in here on keeping your receipts. So yeah, Mary Lou asked, when you want to access your money, do you have to show proof of what you're buying?
No.
Not to access it, but you want to keep your receipts just so that you can prove it was disability related. But if you look at that list, it's pretty broad. Here's another one. Rachel said, I opened up an ABLE account for my son, so he is the beneficiary. Can
Yep.
he access his money, or does he need me to do it?
It's designed to be him to be the main user.
Right. Right.
No missed words in the language of the law about that.
Okay, so Linda and Jill, do you want to go through some of the other questions that came up on this? I'm reading your chat.
Well, I just want to mention before there, it's better to not be on benefits in the first place and join the workforce, because you at least have a better fighting chance of having a natural, independent life, because benefits adds a lot more restrictions to it. The able account makes it a little bit easier, only still a lot of stuff to juggle, because I manage my own benefits with some assistance, only it's not the easiest thing. Having a job makes it harder, and it's just a lot of stuff to juggle and bounce around. It's easier to try to give someone a chance to join the workforce first.
So the question on the parent and child in the account, Gretchen's come back with it. If the beneficiary has a guardian, then who owns the account?
The person with the disability, because it's layered of a joint accounts. They have no language of it.
Right, there is no, there's no condition for a joint account. It doesn't exist. We actually went through and looked at all the accounts. There is not one that is a joint account.
The person with disability have to give up their right for someone to access it. That's the only way.
Which is what a guardian does. It basically.
Yeah, only still like have to set up in their name. So it's not like the parent can put their own name in and put their kid on it.
Right. Here's another one. Here's a good question. Can you use the money for recreation, like taking a vacation?
Yes.
You could. You could make a case that that's for your health or your disability, or
What's the hardest thing with the able account? So I can give you a little example of difference between trust and able account. Trust is a lot more rigid. It have to be a specific thing, and you could make it a specific thing in the language. Only you never can alter or change within the language in the trust. It's always have to spend it only on those things. The able account very broad of what you could spend on.
Carly asks, if the beneficiary with power of attorney, I'm not clear what you're asking, Carly. If the parents pass away, are you asking?
You would get to go back in and change the beneficiary.
You have to change it, right? You'd have to go, you'd go in and change it.
The other thing I just wanted to say, because like I said, I answered some of these questions here, but when somebody signs up for it, they have the option of allowing someone else to look at their account and give them some, depending on which state you're doing it in, but
yes.
you
look
have
at it, yes.
Look at it, and so that you can help them with decision making. And there's also a way to, if something should happen to you, depending again on the state, and that's one of the things you need to check into, because I have helped some people open these accounts. But I love Chris's recommendation is, how much do you want to gamble? Because everybody I've worked with doesn't want to gamble. They just want to get their flat interest rate.
That's right. They don't want the high risk account. Nope.
No high risk. Yes, no gamblers here.
Yeah.
So some of the other questions that people had asked is, if the money taken out considered income? What I have been told by several accounts managers in other states is that, yes, what you heard before, you need to withdraw it ASAP. But the critical time for look behind is whether or not it's in your account at the end of the month.
That's correct. That's the danger. Yes.
Social Security checks. So if you do end up in that situation where you haven't spent it and it's like the 28th of May and the 29th. You don't want
your hair in the cookie jar.
Right. You want to reinvest it, and you want to reinvest it into.
Or what we like to call it, you're to be in a pickle situation.
Yeah, it's either put it back in your able account really fast or spend it, one or the other.
Yes. So there's a couple other things that I answered. Veterans and spouses and other people with disabilities have to meet the able account requirement, because right now we don't have we don't have an age limit above 26. Molly, maybe you could repeat what you said before about that, because I think a couple people may have missed.
So right now, your disability must have occurred before the age of 26. That's the limit. You can open an account at any age, but your disability must have happened before the age of 26. There has been a move to extend that. Most recently, I want to say it was 46 that they were looking to extend it to, but that has not moved. So right now, your disability must have occurred before the age of 26.
So if you are,
That doesn't mean that at 50 you couldn't decide to open an account. You can do that.
Since they opened the able account, they've been trying to raise the number.
Right, they have.
So if you are a veteran and your disability, if you're a veteran with a disability and the disability occurred before age 26, then yes, you can open.
You're fine, correct.
But if you're,
yeah.
Go ahead, Molly.
But what raising the age to 46 would do is it would open it up probably to more veterans. I think that was some of the feeling, as well as other individuals who may have brain injuries or spinal cord injuries or other disease later in life. So I think there's a thought that might happen. Generally speaking, you're not seeing huge amounts of money in those able accounts. I think the last figure I heard is that the average is no more than 20,000.
Barley, tell me what you told me of the fear when it was about to trade in one was.
The fear of what?
The fear why they was hesitant to even vote for able accounts and make it a law, because they fought tons of people with disabilities will have tons of money in their accounts.
They did. They thought all these people were going to have tons of money, and we're thinking, where are they going to suddenly get all that money? They don't have jobs, and their benefits certainly aren't making them wealthy. But it was fascinating that was the issue, and it continues to be. But by and large, you're not seeing huge amounts of money in those able accounts because people don't have that kind of disposable income to sit in an account.
Only if you're going to be hearing money or win a lawsuit or something, or
right,
maybe out of a million chance won the lottery.
There you go.
And the representative payee does not have access to this.
No, they do not.
Unless you set it up so that they do.
Right.
But it's up to the individual to set it up. It's really designed for an individual to be controlling their own funds. So a payee should not prevent the person with the disability from accessing their own account. And if they try, you have grounds to file a complaint.
Several of you have asked about the booklet. The booklet is sitting on the USAID website right now. Chris, do you want to talk a little bit about accessing the booklet?
Training.
Yes.
I recommend training again and again.
Yeah, he has actually 2 PowerPoints. One is a short intro to the ABLE Act, and one is a much longer, detailed version that covers a lot of what's in the booklet. And I think for a lot of individuals, just having the booklet isn't necessarily going to be as helpful as having the training. And he is reachable and willing to do that. So.
And I'm not going to help it if you contact me after you looked at it.
Okay, let's see. Here's another. Is there any way people with disabilities can participate in the movement to divest money from fossil fuel industries without ESG, SRI specific funds or voting shares inside ABLE accounts? Anybody want to talk to that? That's not one I can answer. I mean, I think the movement to divest money from fossil fuel industries, that means that you've really got to look at each one of those funds and determine exactly what's being invested in those funds. The divestiture problem is huge. I absolutely agree that divesting is an incredible way to change policy. It worked with apartheid in South Africa. It's worked in other places, but it's pretty complicated in terms of figuring out exactly where that money is.
But some
They don't
states,
tell you what companies they invest in. They just give you like a risk
Right.
assessment.
but one state in particular does do socially responsible investments if you do the investments. But again, you still run the risk that Chris talked about, which is you're gambling. So if those stocks crash, which state? I'm not going to tell you which state. You're going to have to research it on your own. I don't want to run
Not on record, no.
But if you go on, and Dawn, who's asked some of these wonderful questions, actually had posted a comparison state by state that I believe, Dawn, that you had taken down you put together from what's already on the Able Account website. The Able Account website is there's a link to it on our website. And it's also, if you do a little bit deeper dive than just the front page, you can find that information there, and it will tell you whether you can get a debit card or not, it won't tell you if it's socially responsible, but if you see a state that does what you want it to do, you can call the person who manages the Able Account. And most of them are pretty cool that I've run into. I've only dealt with 3 other states, and I found them very, very receptive to answering questions and very supportive of people with disabilities. They're not your stereotypical banker who is like, money from the bank. And if you only receive, do you have to pay taxes if you only receive SSI?
No.
You are supposed to be filing taxes if you receive SSI or SSDI.
If you put it in there, it's tax-free.
But if you put it in, yes, if you put it in Able, it's tax-free. But if you do get those, then my suggestion is that you file, because you may actually be surprise, eligible for a refund.
Right. There's a question on where to find the booklet, and let me just do a plug in general for the Building a Great Life series. Right now, there are resources for each one of the topic areas we have covered. If you go to UConn, UCONN, UCEDD, UConnUSED.org. If you want to type it in the chat, we'll put it in there as well.
I had already opened it.
There, you opened it?
Because the red book is up there too,
Yeah, there's a ton of resources in there that we've already put in. So
yep. So it says, this is the actual website. And if, if you click on this right now, it's
are you sharing? Are you sharing your screen?
It's in the chat room to everyone.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So just, if you go in and look, you can find all of those resources. Everything is in there right now. There's a lot of material in there, and we continue to add every month. As we go to a new topic, we add new materials. So that's where they are going to be housed for now. At some point, we think Building a Great Life will actually have a web page on the DD Council website, and we'll be hosting materials there as well. So lots of places for you to find this information.
Lander, stop trying to help people. Make them work for it.
Oh, you're so tough, Chris. I'm telling you.
No, I'm so glad you're my friend.
I'll tell you, doing this project with Chris over the last year, man, he is tough. Okay, other questions that people have? I know we covered a lot tonight.
Hi, this is Diane Smith. I'm the one who asked the question about the paying taxes, and you just really confused me again. What I was wondering, so you said, we'll go back. So you said come April 15th next year, I need to file an income tax return for my son. He just turned 18. We just are in the process of filing for SSI. So next year, I have to file a tax form for him.
Yeah,
Why?
so you can get the earned income credit.
No, not if he's not working.
He's not, Nicholas is just 18. He will still be in school. He
Not
will not
working.
be working.
No,
No,
he's In fact, he's still your dependent, so you're still
Right.
going to
You're
be
still
filing
gonna,
as head of household and
Right.
listing him as a dependent. No, absolutely no need to file income tax return for him unless he's working.
Okay, so he's still a dependent under my income tax next year, even
Correct.
though he's receiving this amount of money every month from the state.
Yep, that's only, well,
Correct.
from the feds. If it's
I meant the
SSI,
federal, I'm sorry, from the federal
Nope.
government.
no worries. Just
Yep.
clarification because people, it's confusing.
All right, because I just, like I said, I just didn't want to sit here come April next year and then be surprised with some
Yeah.
tax bill when I should have been taking some of his $794 and putting it aside.
You would be under the income level to get a to have to pay anyway. He
Right.
would be under the income with $794 a month.
Okay, so we don't have to put anything on any tax forms about this $794 that he gets.
Oh, you know what? I think you should check with a
I'll-
tax person about how you're going to reflect that income. Okay?
I was going to say, because one of the things that the stimulus checks didn't come to quickly were to people who hadn't filed income tax. So if you file
Yeah.
it, you're not going to have
I
to.
want to
pay
be
it
really
till
clear
you
here.
know.
We cannot give you tax advice. So I do think you need to go to a tax person and be very clear about that. I am
Okay.
not going to mislead you on what you need to do for your taxes.
All right,
Okay?
I just didn't know if what other
Yeah.
people had done. If other people, if you knew at least that I needed to hold out money until I could get a hold of a tax person. So I just wanted to make sure I was at least holding money if I was going to have to pay taxes on that.
Talk to a tax person.
Okay,
That would be my best advice. Anthony has asked if you can open an ABLE account in any state. No. There are some states that require that you live in that state in order to open the account. In the book that Chris did, he actually split the table at the back in half. So the first part of the table are the states listed where anybody can open an account. The last part of the table are those states where you have to live in that state in order to be able to open the account.
And some things also change very quickly because there were 2 states that had that looked like they were a good possibility. And when we checked out one of the states, it turned out that they had combined forces with one of the other states. And so they were using the same bank. And I have no idea what their joint administration process is, but the one state no longer had its own account. So you do need to stay current with the website, and you also need to call before you do anything.
That's why Chris put the websites in for each state. So make sure, because the information there is what was on the website as the workbook was being developed. But if you go to the website, it could easily have changed. So just go and make sure before you make a decision.
It's changed since I picked one.
Yes.
Like it
Yeah.
changed it monthly. It's pretty shocking. On some states. Some states used to be open for everyone around the country, and they closed it only if you was a resident there, only if you lived there.
Right. Yes, Varian, it's on the USAID website. He was asking where your book is located, and that's where it is. All right, other
Again,
questions?
I recommend to actually get trained by
Yep.
someone.
Yeah, agreed. No, you cannot open an account in multiple states. You can have one account. You cannot have multiple accounts. Other
I have a
questions?
question. Yeah, I have
Yes.
a question. This is Barbara, and I actually live in a Section 8 housing. I do work. I have like 2-3 jobs now. I am getting benefits from SSDI. My rent is based on income. Should I open an ABLE account for myself? Because I'm working with my sister in order to save money, for future, and down the line, I'm going to need a new car at some point or anything. And because I have several savings accounts and also a checking account, that's considered assets and they use that against, like, to calculate my rent. Would it be smart for me to open an ABLE account? Like to tuck that money away?
And SSDI have different requirements and different rules.
Okay.
SSDI have less restrictions.
Okay.
Does SSI is more like a welfare.
But if you're going to save money and you want to earn some decent interest with it and keep it, you know, apart from being counted,
right,
put it in an ABLE account.
Yeah, I'm just saying maybe in her situation, maybe won't have that problem that much compared to if he was on SSI only.
well, I've been disabled since birth, so I'm under my father's, I think it's my
Got it.
father's
Right. Yeah.
account. He used to work for DMR, which is what now, DDS?
Yeah.
So I'm under his info.
I
So
didn't do
you're
it. I'm just saying,
saying,
like, you maybe are a little bit. You're
Well, so-
probably a little bit better off as some other people with disabilities or not.
But I think the question is, would she benefit from having an ABLE account? And
right,
I think
yeah.
that it won't hurt.
yeah, I mean, it's a way to protect that money. You'd still have access to it.
Okay.
As was pointed out earlier, you know, I'm going to assume that if you decide you want to buy a car, that you're not going to need access to that money to, you know, the same day you decide, that you have a few days to get it out of your ABLE account and move.
Yeah,
So that's,
hopefully
you
not.
know, yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
not sure.
I
What's
did
your name
set
again?
up. I'm sorry,
I think
What's your
you
name
were
again?
asking- I think what
my
you were
name is
asking-
Barbara.
Barbara, yeah. And you're probably on MedConnect, Medicaid, right? Because you have the employment?
I'm on Medicare. I have United Health, which was Anthem.
Okay, so that's probably an HMO.
Mhm.
Yeah, but do you have Medicaid as well, Barbara?
No, I do not.
Yeah,
No.
because you're
My
probably
sister does.
eligible. You're probably eligible for Medicaid because you do have the employment part of it. So,
Okay.
you know, it would cover your dental,
Right.
which, you know, probably isn't covered right now.
Yep.
And that has a $10,000 asset limit. But again, you know, any extra above that, especially like you say for the car, ABLE account would be a very, very wise choice for you.
Great.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I have several different savings accounts. One is emergency, one is car, one is, you know, for a new apartment if I ever decide to move.
Yeah.
And I just don't want them, obviously where I live now, they are aware of those. And I am getting, what is it? Benefits every month.
Right.
And they're aware of that because it's obviously income and they know about
Yep.
my jobs.
Yep.
But I
Yep.
don't want to go through the money that I'm trying to save
Right.
and put it towards rent
Yep.
because the rent is based on income. So if I get more jobs, it's 30% of my income.
So
Yeah.
if you put the money in an ABLE account, I'm
Yep.
looking at the HUD website right now, the HUD, which runs Section 8.
Yes,
It says that public housing authorities and owners are supposed to exclude from income all amounts that are specifically excluded by other federal statute. Given that the ABLE account creates a federally mandated exclusion for ABLE accounts applicable to HUD programs, in determining income, HUD will exclude amounts in the individual's ABLE account based on that statute and the Code of
So
Federal.
you would be much better off to put it in an ABLE account.
So, okay, so I would be able to take the money in my 3 current savings accounts,
And put all in there.
which are more than 300 right now, close to 1,000,
Yeah.
and take that money and put it into the ABLE account.
Yes.
Okay,
And when you take it out, it's not considered income either.
Right. So you're just moving it
oh,
to your.
right, I
moving
would
it,
be
yeah.
moving it from,
Yeah,
I have
moving it.
Webster now, so I would be moving it from them to the ABLE account.
To your name, to
Just-
enable account. Yep.
Just so I don't touch it and don't see it, and
Yeah, no, it's a
Our-
great
our
way to
able-
save money because you don't have immediate access to it. So it's nice.
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess you said it was like 2 to 3 days once.
It is. I
like
mean,
it
you
goes
might have,
through.
yeah, you might have a prepaid card, but it's not going to be in a huge amount. They're going to put a
So
limit
it's
on
like
it.
a debit card then.
It's like a debit
or-
card and they
or
put a
it's-
limit on it. Yeah.
Right.
And
Okay.
also to maybe take a while after you put it in there to access it, because sometimes it takes about a week or 3 weeks just for everything
To get the account open. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, my sister has one, and I don't know how long that took. But yeah, for myself, it's so hard to, save money and then be like, oh yeah, you have, multiple jobs, so your rent is going up based on those jobs.
Yeah.
Great. Take
Yeah.
all my money then. Okay.
Definitely.
Put it
Thanks so
in
much.
Geez.
It's great.
account and only keep what you need for each month for your
That's
own
right.
expenses and keep everything else in the ABLE account. And then you can save it. And then when when you're ready to get your car, withdraw it and get the car. But make sure you plan it so that you actually have the money when you're signing on the car, because otherwise.
Right.
you know,
Like, yeah, if I
Right.
found a car, okay, now wait a week, like 5 days, get the money, then, yeah. So
Right,
give it a
so-
few days
yeah,
for it to come.
timing is everything.
Absolutely.
Although
And
honestly, with the programs that you're on, Barbara, right now, because you're not
Yep.
on any Medicaid programs, with, Social Security disability, there is no asset limit. And with Medicare, there is no asset limit.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, you're,
that's why I said it was like it's easier in certain
Conservative.
situations where like being SSI or Medicaid,
Yeah.
where you're a lot more restricted.
Yep.
and your rent is still gonna be
Ugh.
calculated the same, because it's still gonna calculate the same income.
Right.
It's just.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's fine. Well, it's not fine, but oh well. I'm just trying to get a better way to actually save the money
Good for
instead
you.
of
Good for
Great.
you.
save the money, but I can still see it
Right.
when I go on my Webster app. It's like, oh, no, I can't. If I don't see it, it's a lot
It'll
better.
be much better way to save. Absolutely. We are down to our last 5 minutes. Are there any burning questions that people have before we close for the night?
I think the only other one is that Jill had answered around the differences between Medicare and Medicaid and MedConnect, and whether somebody's eligible for that. So I don't know if that's still a burning question or not, but you want to just read what you wrote, Jill? Or do you want me to read it because I see it?
Yeah, you can read it.
Okay, what Jill said is if an individual is on SSDI, they will be eligible for Medicare regardless of age after 2 years of receiving SSDI benefits. Individuals on SSI will be eligible for Medicaid, Husky, and will not have to wait the 2-year period. MedConnect is also known as Medicaid for the quote, employed disabled, end quote. Individuals receiving Medicaid who go to work can switch their Medicaid over to continue coverage. Additionally, if an individual is on SSDI receiving Medicare and goes to work, they may be eligible for MedConnect. And Lisa, you were deferred to for more details.
That's a mouthful.
So, the way that I initially learned it when I worked at the Department of Social Services was Medicaid is from the state. Well, let me start by saying Medicare is from the federal government because the federal government cares about you, whereas Medicaid,
Okay.
Medicaid is from the state because they're aiding you. So I don't know if that may help. Medicare is the red, white, and blue card. Medicaid is the
I
gray
love that.
card. That may help.
Okay.
But Lisa, you had, in your
Sounds about
presentation,
right.
you had talked about, if a person is on Medicare SSDI, they go to work, that they might be eligible for the MedConnect, which would kind of help to be a supplemental insurance for them, so they would get that dental and optical. But I know that there is a criteria, an eligibility criteria, and I was afraid to speak to that because not everybody will.
Right. Like you say, well, depending on the income limit, if you have Medicare, you are not eligible for Medicaid
Mhm.
unless you work. If
Sorry,
you're getting,
that's not true.
Except,
Look, it's
the
Sheldon
MedConnect.
down in the corner on my
Yeah.
screen.
Sorry, that's really, there's a lot of people who are both on Medicare and Medicaid.
yes,
Medicaid is a needs-based program. Medicare is work history, but you could have somebody who's low income. They get very little Social Security disability. They get Medicare because they've been on SSDI for 2 years. Plus they get Medicaid because they're low income and low assets without working. So it's important
right. And that would be very, yeah, that would
possibility
be,
to get Medicaid even if you're not working. That's all.
Interesting.
well,
Or they can be
there
on a
would,
waiver.
what?
Or they could be on a waiver.
Or they could be on a waiver,
A
right?
waiver,
That makes the difference right there, Joe.
Mhm.
If you're on a waiver program. And that's a different type of Medicaid, than straight
And
Medicaid.
this is where the discussion of benefits just starts to make your hair hurt, because it's like,
called monkey.
oh.
Mhm.
Sorry to interfere. I'll go away.
No,
now.
it's okay. It's okay. It's just that this is when we really start to step back and go, okay, there are so many circles and roads and
Mhm.
paths to get.
There are actually over
yeah.
50 Medicaid
Yeah,
programs.
there are, and that's when that's the highway that
Right,
is
each with its own
very
rules.
hard to write a roadmap for, because
Yeah.
there's burned out bridges and waiting lines and traffic jams and toll booths, and you need a key card to get into this one, but then you can't get out. It's hard to be a tour guide to that kind of a highway system. It's really
It
complicated.
takes you years to understand all the different exits on it. It just trust
And
me.
entrances.
Yeah, it sounds like a whole
Yeah.
situation.
That's, so there's the sort of the general big programs, and then there's all these other little ifs and buts and places that take you to different places. And it,
And many places don't want to help. They just only explain their
Yeah.
exit, never the other exit.
so our presentation today was to give you the generic, these are the major ways you're going to get coverage, and these are the general things you can do with your coverage. We hope you've taken away from this some good ideas on how you can work, how you can manage your money, how you can plan and budget with your money, and all of that goes into building a good life. And it is time for us to end. So with that, I
Absolutely.
really want to thank all of our speakers tonight. You guys have been great. This is a tough topic to cover, and you did a fabulous job with it. So thank you so much.
And before you go
Thank you,
anywhere,
guys.
in the chat is
In the chat is the
the
evaluation.
Please do that. It's really, really important because our funders require us to account for pretty much every time we inhale. So if you could please fill that out. You can get directly to it by clicking on this link, and we'll throw you
And
off.
it's very fast. It's a very fast survey. It will
It
not
is.
take you long.
And-
Thank you all again. Have a wonderful night. And I hope we see you all June 3rd for our next session on employment. Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Everybody.
Okay.
Hey, Barbara.
Hmm?
Are you on MSP? The Medicare Savings Program?
I don't think so. No.
Definitely something to look into is if you're on Medicare and not on Medicaid.
Okay.
That'll get rid of that premium that you're paying for Medicare.
Yeah, because I was paying.
I just want to
paying
interrupt you a
Medicare.
second, Barbara, that I'm going to be shutting everybody down in about a minute. So please, if you haven't already done it, click
Yep.
on the evaluation and do that.
Oh,
Okay, so
where? Hold on. Oh, here we go. Got it.
all right.
What's today's date?
The 6th.
Yesterday was Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, that's right.
And the day before that was May the 4th be with you.
Forgot about that. I guess a self-active.
Joe, if you want to talk to Barbara, you can send her a private chat and let her know how to get in touch with you if you wanted to continue your conversation.
Yeah, how do I do that?
So you open chat down at the bottom of your screen. It says chat and it's got the little bubble.
Yep.
And if you click on that, it should bring up the chat room.
Yep.
And where it says everyone,
yep.
if you click on everyone, it'll bring up a menu, and Barbara's actually right at the top.
Okay.
Probably because I'm the only one left in here.
No, there's a bunch of people.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you click Barbara, your message will only go to her, and I'll stay on until you tell me you're done with that.
Okay.
And Barbara, I'll stay on until you tell me you've been able to get that.
Oh, perfect.
So if I go to Barbara and then click chat.
Just click Barbara's name.
Yeah.
And it'll down at the bottom, it'll say to Barbara, and you can type your contact
Okay, all right. I got you.
as opposed to giving it to all of us, unless you want to be bothered by all of us.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, I did the survey.
Okay, and so Joe's typing in his contact information.
Oh, perfect.
And Kathy Bracken, hi. So when you have it, Barbara, let me know. Everybody else, thank you.
Got it.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you in a month.
Yeah.
For our next bagel, as we're calling these, Building a Great Life webinars.
Oh.
Every time I say that, my husband says to me, what kind? Everything?
Yes, everything, definitely. Everything bagels are amazing.
Okay, so do you have Joe's information there and you're able to take it?
Yes, I believe I.
Okay, just make sure you copy it and save it somewhere. Because once I close the chat, although
I also screenshotted it too, so.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect. Then you have it. So I'm going to hang up unless a couple people are hanging around specifically to talk to me. There's 2 Kathys on. Otherwise, see you and you can go. Yvonne, thank you. Okay, one of the Kathys signed out. Kathy Flaherty, are you here to chat, or are you here because you walked away and I'm going to end it? Barbara, it was nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, guys.
Good night. Okay, I am going to end this. Good night, everybody who's still on.